Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the MTRS virtual seminar on Ready for Retirement. My name is Scott Olson. I'm the Assistant Executive Director and Chief Communications Officer, and I will be acting as the host today for our presenters, Richard Grimsky, who's the Director of Member Services South, and Jennifer Samalowitz, who is the Senior Retirement Specialist in Member Services West. I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping issues as far as the Q&A during the session today. You do have the opportunity to interact live with MTRS staff in the Q&A panel. You can access the Q&A panel through the button, which is typically at the top of your screen, and it has a little question mark in it. So you can enter questions into the Q&A panel, and they will be filtered to us to review. Nobody else will see them, only MTRS staff. And then we will filter them out, and we will answer some live in the chat room, and we will also answer some general questions live during some preset breaks in the presentation. We do ask that you keep the questions to a general nature. We cannot take any questions about your specific situation, your account, or creditable service during this presentation. So also please limit your questions to topics that we've already covered, because it is quite likely that the question that you're asking in the chat, other people have, and we'll be answering during the course of the presentation. So we appreciate you keeping the questions to topics that have already been covered. And due to high volume, we expect a high attendance today. We cannot guarantee that every single chat message in the Q&A panel will be answered in real time. If for some reason we are unable to answer your question in real time, you can always go to our website and click on Contact up in the top right-hand corner, and that will bring you to our general information form where you can submit a specific question about your situation. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce our first presenter, Rich Grimsky.
Okay, thank you, Scott, and I want to welcome everybody to the Ready for Retirement seminar. I hope you're all having a great vacation week off. The weather's been pretty good, so I'm sure that it was a nice, much-needed break for everybody out there. So, and as we know, we're here today to talk about retirement, which is a great topic to discuss on days off like this. So we do have a lot of ground to cover here, so I'd like to just give you an overview first of what to expect here in this presentation. Of course, this presentation is in conjunction with the Ready for Retirement booklet that we have published on our website, if you care to follow along with that as well. So we're going to go through, break this down into three parts. Part one, I am going to take on those. They are pre-retirement issues, what you need to do and consider before you retire, which the list is immense, and we'll try to tackle those one-on-one. Part two of this presentation is really the application process, and a step-by-step walkthrough of that and what you should know and what to expect and when. Certainly, we'll be giving you a timeline on the process itself and give you some tips and pointers on what you should look forward to seeing in the application and how to fill it out. And then finally, we will wrap it up with other retirement issues like, health insurance, which is a big topic, working after retirement, Social Security, and taxes. So that will be part three, and that will make you aware of other things that you need to know as you approach retirement. The Q&A will also be at the very end. As Scott mentioned, we will have opportunities for you to be asking questions in the chat room, and we will be following up with some of those questions live as well. So we look forward to that. So without further ado, we will get into our presentation, and you can't start a presentation like this with explaining the plan and who we are and what your benefits are. What we are not is a 401k. And this benefit is not based on your account balance. This is a defined benefit plan under 401A of the IRS code. So as such, as a defined benefit plan, the benefit is according to a set formula. It's based on age, service, and salary, and the benefit is paid monthly for life. And just so everybody knows too, although we do keep an account balance of all your retirement contributions and interest, fluctuations in the financial markets do not affect the amount of your benefits. So the pension fund is invested in a diversified portfolio with a focus on long-term returns, which has actually been performing very well of late. So we do have two membership tiers, as you might remember. If you were in our system back in April of 2012, there was some significant changes to the pension system in that any member who came in to a retirement system, and we do have 103 retirement systems in the Commonwealth, so bear that in mind. But if you entered service after April 2nd of 2012, you were considered a Tier 2 member. Now that's in the minority. The majority of our members are Tier 1 recipients, which means that they came into service prior to April 2nd of 2012. So most of you sitting here, if you are getting ready to retire in the next 3 to 6 months or 6 to 12 to 18 months, you are likely a Tier 1 member if you came in before April 2nd of 2012. And just a thing to keep in mind, this program was designed with Tier 1 members in mind. We do have some information about Tier 2 members in the back of the booklet, and we certainly have a lot of information on our website about Tier 2 membership and those changes to the benefits that occurred. But this presentation will really focus on Tier 1 members. So one of the big things that we do here at the MTRS that you can look at as you are in your pre-retirement phase of being ready to get your stuff in your paperwork going is things that you get paid on an annual basis. So if you think about some of the things that you earn as a teacher, base salary, for example, longevity, if you are a coach, if you are getting annual payments in stipends for additional services that you are providing to your school districts. Those are all things that are going to be included in the 3-year salary average when you retire. So a good exercise would be to know what those things are. I mean, as I said earlier, and I'll go into the formula, the way it works, age, service, and salary. Salary is a big component of the formula. So knowing how much money and salary that's going to be included in your salary average is important. So things that are going to be included are always going to be amounts listed in your collective bargaining agreement. So that again is your base salary. So if you're looking at your salary schedule from your CBA and you know what step and scale that you were on, say your master's plus 45, or your bachelor's plus 15, wherever that intersects on your salary schedule is going to be your base salary. And then if you get things like longevity, very common payment for giving years of service to the district, those are going to be includable. Any kind of coaching stipends that you may earn that are listed in your CBA as well. And like I said, any other payments like payments for additional duties. So if you're a mentor and that's listed in your CBA, or if you are a department head, if you're doing any other, if you're an advisor, a class advisor, or if you're running a club, if those items are listed as salary amounts in your CBA and were agreed upon by the union and the school committee, then we are going to be able to use those in your salary average. And that also includes your administrators. So if you're an administrator out there and you're working on a 12-month basis and you're working on an individual contract that you've negotiated separately from a CBA, rest assured that we're going to use the amounts that are in your individual contract as well. So what are some of the things that we are not going to include? Well, we are not going to include any amounts that the school district is paying you for giving them notice of retirement. And this is a very common payment. So if there's some kind of payment mechanism in your contract which says if you give them notice that you're retiring a year or two in advance and they're going to pay you some kind of lump sum payment, that will never be included as regular compensation and will not be includable in your salary average. And by the way, you shouldn't be paying any retirement contributions on those amounts either. Any kind of sick leave buyback is also excluded. So if you're one of those people who's never taken a sick day in your career, and you are going to get paid those monies after you retire, that again will not be used towards the salary average. Any unused vacation time, if you're an administrator, that will not be included either. Any temporary salary augmentation, so any kind of short-term project-based payments, any hourly payments that you may be getting, any hourly work that you might be doing for the district, that is not a regular payment, that is really just when you can do it, those are typically excludable as well. And as are annuities and fringe benefit payments that you may be due if you are an administrator and you have an administrative contract. So these are some of the things that are going to be included and excluded in your salary average, and things that you can really zone in on in the context of your formula before you actually submit your application. But before we continue, I just want to bring up something that has come up recently about your retirement contributions and credible service in your online account. So everybody has an online account, and we call it Member Self-Service. And Member Self-Service is a portal that we created and about 4 or 5 years ago, where you can go online and look at your account balance. You can look at your credible service and things like that. So I just wanted to say that, that online account is not an account that's ever going to be used to calculate your retirement benefit. Okay. And that if we are experiencing some delays in your district in reporting your contributions to that account, it will not delay your retirement. So if you're someone who's been online and you've seen that your online account is a little bit delayed, just know that it's not going to delay your retirement. You should still go forward with your plans to apply for retirement, and that all of your contributions that your district is sending to us, we do have. And we also have all of the credible service data that goes along with that, as reported by your school districts. They are secure and they're recorded in our system. It's that the online account does not actually show those postings just yet. So we wanted to just say that all of the data is being validated before we post it to an online account. And we are committed to getting the online accounts up to speed as quickly as we can. As far as credible service, and again, I think, to me, credible service is the key to retirement. And so when we train staff on how to calculate retirements, this is where we start with credible service. And we talk about things that you can obtain and things that you can buy back. And one of the biggest things that you can do before you retire, and again, this is something you want to do well ahead, is you can buy back service. So some of the service, though, is not cheap to buy, and it costs money to purchase it. But you got to think back, what is it that I rendered in my career that I could potentially purchase? One of the most common things is a refund buyback. So if you're somebody who took a refund at some point in your career, whether it be from us at the MTRS or another retirement system, then you can buy that back and you can essentially pay back the money that you took out. But then there's that actuarial interest that gets tacked onto it. So don't forget about that. You can also buy back Massachusetts state or municipal employment. So if you ever worked as an employee in a city or a town in any capacity, as long as you weren't a member of that local retirement system, you could buy back your service. Any Massachusetts substitute or temporary teaching, which is one of our most popular requests, you can buy that back. So if you're a day-to-day sub, a tutor, or paraprofessional, there's a chance you could buy that back. You got to mail in and submit your application for that. We'll talk about that in one moment. If you're an out-of-state public school teacher in a public school out of state, you might be able to buy that back. Non-public school teaching, believe it or not, is a thing that you can purchase, some of which can be rendered before 1973, and other service, it may be different. So again, you'd refer to our applications for all the details. And the last one there on that list for actuarial interest is Department of Defense Overseas Dependent School Teaching, which is a mouthful, but a very rare purchase that we see, but certainly one that if you can buy it, you're going to be billed at the actuarial interest rate. So the actuarial interest rate right now is 7%, and that's from when you rendered the service until you actually buy it back. That interest will accrue annually during that time period. What can we bill at buyback interest? Well, we have a couple. The buyback interest rate is cheaper. It's at 3.5%. So military service, actually, there's no interest charged on military service purchase if you qualify as a veteran in Massachusetts. Non-public school teaching, different type, under a different section of the law, can be purchased at the buyback rate in a mass publicly funded school, and as well as vocational education and Peace Corps service. Now, in order to purchase your service, you must be active at the time that you apply. There are a couple of exceptions to that, and one is Peace Corps and refund buybacks. For those, you actually don't have to be active to apply, but for everything else on the list, you need to be active, meaning that you are currently working and contributing to the MTRS in order to apply. If not, then you may not be eligible. All service purchases must be made in full prior to your retirement date. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is to apply for these things maybe early on in your career if you could. Obviously, you're getting ready to retire, so if you still think you might have a purchase to make, then you should try to do that, because you need to make it prior to your retirement date. Now, any late payments past the retirement date could either postpone your date of retirement or delay your first retirement check. So again, just another reminder. So whenever you see this hand with a finger sticking up with the red ribbon on it, that means there's an assignment for all of you. And in your first assignment is to just make sure that you have all of your purchases in order before you apply to retire. So complete your purchases now. Yeah, that's our mantra here. If you've rendered anything in the past, you can see page 5 of the program guide, and you can look at some of the particulars. I mentioned a bunch of them on that slide earlier. And, you know, they have to be made before the date of retirement, as I mentioned. I mean, a couple of options to pay for those service purchases would be a rollover or trust-to-trust transfer. But just keep in mind that if you, once you do get invoiced by the MTRS and you owe us a certain amount of money, it does take time to roll over those monies from investment vehicles like that. So if you are somebody who's making your payment on June 29th, and you know the deadline is June 30th, and you're planning to use a rollover and hadn't started it yet, then that's probably not going to work out great. But if you're somebody who gets it in time and sends it in to us, and you have time to initiate these transactions with your financial institutions, it could take anywhere from 30 to 60 days. That's probably being a little pessimistic. It could take actually less than 30 as well in certain cases. But talk to your financial person at the financial institution that you have your money in. It's a great way to make purchases using rollovers. You can avoid taxes by making rollovers, because the money that you put into your investment accounts is generally on a pre-tax basis. And we are also a pre-tax 401A defined benefit plan. So we can accept pre-tax funds, and you can avoid paying taxes on that money if you roll over your money and pay us in that fashion. And as I mentioned, getting on the installment plan is also an option, but it's a 5-year plan, and all payments have to be made in full before your retirement date. So getting on a 5-year installment plan will not work. You cannot make payments after your retirement date passes. So just keep that in mind. And certainly if you're on an installment plan right now and you're not done making your payments, call us and we can figure out your buyout cost so that you can make that payment right before you retire if it's June 30th. So how do I purchase service? It's a great question. You want to go online and download the service purchase form from our website, which is mass.gov/MTRS/forms. So as soon as you get to our home webpage and you click on member, there will be on the left-hand margin a forms column, and you'll be able to click on forms. That will take you to all of the service purchases that I mentioned earlier, all the way from refund buyback, all the way down to Peace Corps. And those forms will need to be downloaded and printed, and in many cases sent to your former employers, whether that's the city or town that you were a lifeguard in back in the 1980s, or whether that was your out-of-state public school teaching position while you were working in New York, if you're looking to buy back out-of-state public school service. All of those pieces of information and guides are available to you. All of them have very useful questionnaires in the beginning of those application forms, which go through some of our eligibility requirements, which there are many. So I would encourage all of you, if you are looking to purchase service now at this late hour, and you're looking to retire this year or next year, you want to get going on these right now. Download the form, look at the eligibility criteria, send your forms off to your former employers. It's going to take time, especially if you're sending forms out to a different state. It could take months for you to get that back. So getting these things done quickly is really the message I'm trying to send here. As far as submitting, please submit once they are complete. If you get your applications back and they're incomplete, please look them over. If we get them and they're incomplete, we're going to send them right back to you, and we're going to ask you to complete them. So it would be better if you could make sure that all of our applications are completed in full. Now, if the school or the employer or the retirement system or whoever it is that's filling out the application cannot fill it out, then have them indicate that on the application when you send it in. That would be rare, but if it does happen, we would like to know that, and we will work with you to get whatever other information we can to make this happen for you before you retire. But just know there's only so much that we can do. So having that form filled out and completely really would help us get through this a lot faster for you. Now, once we get it and it's approved and it's eligible and we have all of our information, then we're going to send you an invoice. Now, the invoice is going to have a dollar figure. It's more likely it could have 3 due dates on it. It could have June 30th as a due date on it, if that's your retirement date. So again, it needs to be paid in full before you retire. But the way we're going to calculate that cost of the invoice is we're going to figure out principal and interest. So it's really a simple formula. We're going to take whatever your past earnings were in that job. Okay, so let's say you were a day-to-day sub in Newton, and you worked for a couple years before you got your full-time teaching job. We would take all of the salary that you earned while you were day-to-day subbing, and we would multiply it by a contribution rate. So what would that contribution rate be? Well, it really varies depending on when the service was rendered. So if it was rendered in 2005, for example, then it would be 11%. If it was rendered in 1997, it might be 9 plus 2. So we are going to calculate the principal based on earnings times rate. And then from there, we are going to add on the applicable interest, whether that's actuarial, 7%, or buyback, which is 3.5. Now, we do have some special formulas for some service purchases, like Voc Experience. If you are a vocational teacher and you needed to submit vocational experience to get your license as a vocational educator, you may be able to buy that back. And if so, we have a special formula for that. And we also have a special formula for military service as well for all of our veterans out there. If you qualify as a veteran in Massachusetts, which is a very simple formula and very cheap, no interest is being charged on that one. Now, again, you can pay by personal check. You can pay by a rollover. We really don't have a lot of flexibility here. We can't accept credit cards, unfortunately, and not that anyone's ever done this, but you couldn't come in with stacks of cash and pay off your bill either that way, which I'm sure all of you have, right? That was a joke. But anyway, it's got to be paid regardless, you know, before you retire, and that's really the key here. All right, so we'll stop for a second and take any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks, Rich. We do have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is, I can take this one. Will the presentation be posted? And a couple of people have asked this, and the answer is yes. We will have the slides, a video recording of this program, and the program book. The program book is available online now. I've put the link in the chat, but a recording of this program along with the slides will be available by the end of the day tomorrow. First question, how do I make sure I am in Tier 1?
Yeah, it's a good question. How do you make sure that you're a Tier 1 was the question. And I think, again, it really comes down to that date that I mentioned, 4/2/12. So if you were a full-time teacher at that point before April 2nd of 2012, meaning that you were enrolled by your school district into MTRS, you met all of the 4 eligibility criteria, which you were working above 50%, you were certified as a teacher, you were required to be certified, and you were your employment was covered by the you were hired by a school committee essentially under contract. If that occurred and you enrolled with us before 4/2/12, either with us or even at a local retirement system level, then you would be a Tier 1 member. Now, there's a lot of things that could kind of screw that up. If you took a refund, for example, when you take a refund, you basically lose your rights to whatever tier benefits you were at. So if you took a refund and you were in 2005, but you took a refund in 2013 and you came back in 2014, then when you came back in 2014, having been a refunded member, then that would make you a Tier 2 member when you come back. So not always an easy question to answer. It really comes down to when it all originated and if it was before that 4/2/12 date.
Great, thanks. Next question. I'm a Tier 2 member. Will there be a presentation related to that retirement planning?
Yeah, this is a great question, and certainly one that, you know, Tier 2 members now have been on our system for over 12 years. So to answer your question about whether there'll be a Tier 2 benefit seminar, absolutely. We are working on it right now. We realize that most of our publications are Tier 1 centric, I guess you could say. We do understand that this particular program that you're here viewing is being ready to retire within the next, 1 to 2 years. That's really the basis of this Ready for Retirement presentation. We also have other presentations that we offer, a MTRS benefits presentation. And we're also going to be going out on the road very soon. Now that pandemic is over, we are going to be ramping up our educational initiatives here. And certainly Tier 2 is on our list.
Great. Next question. Can I set up an in-person meeting to review my MTRS account? And if yes, who do I contact?
Yeah. So as I said about, so they must have heard your question, but so to handle an appointment to look at the MSS account, we really want to try to steer folks away from the MSS account a little bit in terms of its how accurate that is at this moment. I mean, we are certainly working on it, and it will get better over time, and you can continue to go on and check your MSS online account. And there are parts of it that are flawless, but there are certain parts too that are depending on deduction reporting and some delays that we're experiencing there. So we're really, I think what you're maybe asking is, I want to know what my credible service is. I want to know how many years I have, because as you said, Rich, right? Credible service is the key to retirement. So I'd say to that person, rather than setting up an account, a meeting to go over your MSS account, a better option would be to fill out our credible service application and have the application and send that in immediately so that we can get your name on the list to produce a credible service estimate. Now, the estimate is exactly what's in our system that we're going to base your benefit on, what you're going to retire with. We also provide you with projections. If you retire this year, next year, for example, and you're easily able to figure out what you're going to get for benefits. So I would say that, asking for a credible service estimate and getting that application, downloading it, sending it in, and getting that would probably be a better option at this point than going over what may or may not be on your online account. Because again, the online account is not going to determine your benefit.
Okay, great. I'll do one more question for now. Is summer school included in retirement?
Okay, is summer school included in retirement? This is probably one of the most common questions that I've gotten over the years. And, the thing with summer school is that it's such an essential part of every school district and what they do, and they may ask you to do that extra work. Summer school is not includable in terms of your overall service credit. So if you're a teacher and you're working full-time, as many of you are, and you are working 180 days in the school year, and you work all 180 days, okay, from start to finish, you're getting a year of credit, 1.0, and you're going to get a credit. Let's say that was the 13-14 school year. You work all days, you're going to get a full year. The summer is really an extension of that school year. And so you can't get more than a year by law, you can't get more than a year within any academic school year. So if you're already working the full 180 days, you're getting the year credit, the summer work then becomes ineligible. You can't buy it. Retirement shouldn't be coming out of it if you're working those summer jobs at school, pitching in. Whatever monies that you are getting should not be considered regular compensation. They will not be includable in your salary average. The only summer school work that would ever be something that you could buy back would be any summer work that you did before you became a member of the MTRS. So it's a very common question. It's a very good one. But the answer, unfortunately, is no, summer school is not eligible in most cases.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for taking some of those questions from the chat. In the interest of time, we're going to move on with the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Scott. So knowing your eligibility criteria, and we've gone into this a little bit, again, we're going to be talking about Tier 2 members. We have 2 retirement plans that you need to be aware of. One is regular retirement. So in order to be eligible for a regular retirement benefit, at any age, you can retire as long as you have 20 years of credible service, and that's very important. If you don't have 20 years, then you can be age 55 as long as you have 10 years of service. So for a regular retirement, that's those are our benchmarks for knowing whether or not you're even eligible to collect a benefit from the MTRS. As far as Retirement Plus, now Retirement Plus is really just an enhancement to the regular formula, okay? So, and with Retirement Plus, at any age, as long as you have 30 years of credible service, with at least 20 of those years be membership service with the MTRS or Boston retirement system as a teacher, you would be eligible for a Retirement Plus benefit. But again, the key for our Plus members is to get to 30 years of overall creditable service, with 20 of those years being membership with us. As long as you get that, make that benchmark, and then you're eligible for a Retirement Plus benefit. And the great part about Retirement Plus, as many of you probably know already, is that at 30 years, you get an additional 12% added to your allowable percentage of salary average. And then you get an additional 2% for each full year thereafter. So if you can get to 33, 34 years, you may be adding on an extra 18, maybe 20% on top of your base percentage. And I'm going to go into all these numbers in the next couple of slides and show you exactly how that works. But before I do want to talk about the 3 benefit options, because this is probably the number one question that we get about your retirement benefits, and one that's very important to cover. Now, in your booklet, if you're following on with the booklet, there's going to be some statistics out there about who takes A, who takes B, and who takes C. And we update those every year. And the upshot of this is that roughly about 50% of our members take option A. Now, option A is the maximum allowance. So 1 out of every 2 of you that are looking at this presentation are going to take option A. So why option A? Why so many people? And there's no survivor benefits to option A. I think that's really the shocking part of it is with no survivor benefits, meaning that if the benefit stops, you pass away, you take a couple years go by, you happen to pass away, nothing goes to a survivor. Why are so many people taking option A? And one of the reasons that we think there's more people taking A than the other 2 options combined is that many of you probably have life insurance in place already, either whole life or term. If you're somebody who has life insurances in place, if you're maybe a member who doesn't have to protect a survivor, that could be a great reason why. You may be just trying to maximize your allowance because, again, it is your maximum that you can get without a reduction. So maybe you're somebody who isn't retiring at 80% maximum benefits. Maybe you're retiring at 40 or 50 or 60%. We have a very high percentage of our members who retire less than 80%. So maybe there just isn't room in there for you to protect someone because you know that there's a cost associated with taking the other 2 options, B and C. And that's really what B and C are. They are options in which you can protect someone else. They're survivor benefits. So when we talk about option B, the rule of thumb is if you're going to take option B, expect to collect 1 to 3% less than what you would get under option A. And one thing I want to note here is that you have to figure out A first in order to figure out what B will be, right? So if you're somebody at 80% and your salary average is $100,000 a year, under option A, you'd be getting $80,000 a year. Certainly under B, you'd be getting less than that. So it's 1 to 3% less than what you would get under option A. And again, I'm going to have a few slides that are going to show you this in a moment. Now, what option B does is it pays out in a lump sum, a one-time lump sum payment, whatever is remaining in your annuity savings account after you've retired. There's no restrictions on the beneficiary designation when taking option B. So for that reason, it's pretty flexible. So you're taking a, between $500 to say $1,000 a year hit by taking option B, with the expectation that if you pass away within the first 10 years of retirement, whatever happens to be remaining of your annuity savings balance will be paid to a survivor in one lump sum. That's what taking option B does. So option B is probably the least attractive of the 3 options. I would say we have anywhere from 15 to 20% of our retirees every year. We retire about 3,000 people per year at the MTRS, and about 15 to 20% of them take option B. Now, option C is a more comprehensive benefit, and that we have about 30 to 35% of our retirees taking every year. When you take option C, you are taking roughly a reduced benefit of about 9 to 11%. And it really depends on the age of both you and the survivor, in this case, that you will name as your option C beneficiary. Now, keep in mind that these 3 options that you're choosing at retirement during the application process are irrevocable once your retirement date passes. So you have to make these in consideration, and that's why they exist here on pre-retirement issues. But getting back to option C again, it's a 9 to 10% reduction from less than option A. So if you're getting an $80,000 a year benefit, now you're looking at a $72,000 a year benefit, perhaps 10%-ish for the rest of your life. Now, should you pass away, your beneficiary would receive a monthly benefit as well for the rest of their life until they pass away. So it's really a benefit that carries on the benefit to another person, and it's got to be a direct family member. So that's your spouse, your sibling, your child, your parent, or even that ex-spouse that you have stayed friendly with that you'd want to name, which we don't see that too often, I got to be honest with you, but it can happen. So if you make someone your option C beneficiary, you're getting a 10% less benefit with the expectation that whenever you pass away, that person will receive 2/3 of what you were getting until they pass away. Now, if they happen to predecease you, we also have what's called the pop-up provision, which allows you to go back to your A benefit, not retroactively, but prospectively to the A benefit should you name a C beneficiary, a C survivor, and they happen to predecease you. All right, I'm going to move on to the formula. So this is the formula that we're going to use to calculate your benefit. And as I said, it's age factor. So whatever age you are at retirement, we're going to take that factor and we're going to multiply it by the number of years of service that you have. And that's going to give us your allowed percentage of salary average. Now, again, your maximum is 80%. We're going to take that percentage and we're going to multiply it by your salary average, and that's going to be for a Tier 1 member, your highest 3 consecutive years. Or your last 3 years, whichever is greater. So it's typically for most teachers, your salary average is going to be your last, your highest 3 consecutive, which is your last 3 years. So I wouldn't worry on that. So that will give us your option A allowance. Now, if you qualify as a veteran, we may be able to add on an additional $15 per year, up to a maximum of a $300 vet bonus. So to give you an example here, we have Mary Educator. Now, Mary is retiring under the regular retirement formula, and she's going out on June 30th of 2024. Mary is 59 at retirement. So the birthday is very important. So she's already passed by her 59th birthday. And so her age factor is 0.019 or 1.9%. We're going to multiply that times her years of service. So that gives Mary a retirement percentage of 66.5% at retirement. Now we're going to take that, and her salary average is $75,000. So we're going to multiply those two things together and we get $49,875 a year. Mary is also a veteran, so we're going to tack on the $300 for that. So altogether, Mary is going to gross per year $50,175, and she's going to be getting $41.81 a month. And again, that's gross before any kind of deductions, and we will certainly be going into those deductions in different amounts later in the presentation. Now here's, by contrast, a person who is in Retirement Plus, Tom Teacher. He also is Tier 1. So Tom is a year younger than Mary. He's 58, so his age factor is 0.018. His years of service is 34.5. So again, we're going to multiply those two together, but you can see that we come to a base percentage of 62.1. So now if Tom had not elected into Retirement Plus, he wouldn't be getting the extra 20% tacked on as an enhancement. But because Tom did elect into Retirement Plus and he has 34 or more years, he is going to be at 80% maximum. When you multiply that by the $75,000 a year salary average, Tom's looking at a benefit of, with the vet bonus, of $60,300 per year or $5,025 per month. And again, that's gross before any kind of deductions. Okay. So in terms of deductions, and this will be my last slide before I answer questions and turn it over to Jen. You have to plan, in the last pre-retirement issues, you have to plan for your health insurance coverage. Now, the good news is that as long as you do this, ahead of time, you shouldn't have any surprises. So if you contact your local insurance coordinator before your retirement date, usually that's the same person who's handling your health insurance right now at your school district. You just let them know that you're retiring, and they will help you transition your way into retirement. Just know that at the MTRS, we do not administer health insurance benefits here. We simply will take the deduction out of your pension check every month, and we will communicate with your school district about how much to take out of your pension check every month. But as far as administering the benefit or making changes to the plan, if you wanted to go from a family plan to a single plan, or if you wanted to, when you get switched over to Medicare, if you do, those are all things that you should really be contacting your local insurance coordinator with if you're in your school district. Unless you are part of the Retired Municipal Teachers Program, and there's a list that you're going to see here if you are a member of the Group Insurance Commission. And in that case, there will be contact numbers for you to call them if you have questions or want to change plans. But again, your local insurance coordinator generally has all of this information anyways. If you're not part of the Retired Municipal Teachers Program, which most districts are not, then you still might participate in a GIC municipality program. But again, your local insurance coordinator will let you know that. As far as Medicare goes, a lot of school districts will switch you over to Medicare health insurance at 65 years old, as long as you qualify for Medicare and you paid the Medicare tax for 10 years or greater, you will qualify for Medicare benefits. So not to worry there. Or if you're married and your spouse has 40 credits from Social Security, you may also qualify for Medicare. And many school districts are switching you over at 65. And I think that's a cost-saving measure. It's certainly going to save you a lot of money and them. Just know that health insurance costs and coverages can sometimes change between being active and being retired. Also know that your health insurance premiums that currently come out on a pre-tax basis will be after-tax basis after you retire. That's another thing to consider. And just also know that as far as health insurance goes, if you decide to move to Florida after retirement, or South Carolina or California or some other sunny, warm state, that state may tax your benefit, or actually, and you also should check in on your health insurance coverage as well, because your health insurance coverage may have some portability options, but not all. So again, that would be your local insurance coordinator to ask those questions. Say, I'm retiring. I know there's a transition here that I have to let you know. We're planning to move to California. Am I going to be covered under this health insurance plan? It may or not be. You may or may not be. So you have to ask that question. Or if you were going to travel abroad or anything like that as well and go out of country, that would be another thing you certainly would want to talk to your local insurance coordinator about, just to see what your portability options are and what changes you are expecting to get on that healthcare coverage. Okay, well, that just about wraps up my section of the presentation. We will take some questions.
Great, thanks, Rich. We'll start with a couple of quick ones. Does your 3 highest years need to be consecutive?
Yeah, so the 3 highest years was the question. Do they need to be consecutive? And the answer is they don't always have to be, but it's either or. So it's either the last 3 consecutive years, or the highest 3 consecutive years, or your last 3 years, whichever is greater. So if you're somebody who was a principal, let's say, or an assistant principal a few years back, and your salary was really high and you did that job for a number of years, let's say you did it for 3 years, you can use those 3 highest consecutive years from, say, 5 to 10 years ago, and those can be your 3 highest. For most teachers, I think it's your last 3 and your last 3 consecutive are generally going to be your higher. For 99% of you out there watching this program, that's probably going to be true, but there will be certain cases where it may not be. And certainly if you have any questions, you can always write in or talk to us about that, and we can steer you in the right direction.
Great. Can a trust be named as a beneficiary for option B or C?
Yes, so the question, can a trust be named for option B or C? It cannot be named for option C. Option C needs to be an actual a direct family member, as I mentioned earlier. But option B can be a trust. You can name a trust as a beneficiary under option B. And certainly, the way option B works is it's a payout in a lump sum of whatever is remaining of your annuity savings account when you pass away. Now, I think a key to understanding B, again, and I didn't go into this too much earlier, is that whatever is remaining in your account is a key to what I said, right? Because it's an expectation that the account balance will go down over time. So when you retire, your account balance is actually used to finance a portion of your pension benefits over the first 10 years. But at some point, that account balance that you've been contributing to your entire career, many of you probably going to have 200,000 or more in that account. That is what pays out to a beneficiary, whatever is remaining of that account under option B. So again, you can name a trust and send that in, and we will honor that. And should you pass away and their money be in the account at that time, it will go to that trust.
Great. Two more. Are there any advantages or disadvantages to retiring at the end of the month versus the first day of the following month? For example, 1031 versus 11/1.
Okay, great. Retirement date question right in my wheelhouse. I love it. So basically, by law, if you're retiring and you're working the entire school year, so for example, let's use June 30th first, right? Because 60% of all of our retirements happen at June 30th. So why do we use June 30th? Well, we use June 30th by statute because if you are finishing the year and working all 180 days that's in your contract, by law, you must use June 30th as your date of retirement. So if you're in that boat, then I would suggest that you use June 30th. You don't have to do the next day. And I hear that a lot from our members. Should I retire on July 1st or should I retire on June 30th? And to be honest with you, absolutely not. If you use July 1st, actually the reverse happens in that scenario. You lose out on the cost of living increase. I don't want to steal Jen's thunder because she's going to talk about that in a moment. But certainly if you're June 30th, you want to use June 30th. Now, if you're using your birthday as a date of retirement, let's say you're one of these summer birthdays, August 9th is your birthday. You should use that date of your birth as your actual retirement date. And again, we have a lot of information about this in our booklets and online, but you can always use that day. It doesn't have to be the following day. So you don't have to add one more day to it to answer your question.
Great. One last question for Rich. What happens when a retirement plus retiree only has 25 years? Is there some sort of refund on the additional payments made?
Okay, so someone is asking the question about retirement plus and your eligibility and how and what remedies there will be if you do not make it to the 30-year mark. It's a great question, one we get all the time. I think the first question that I always ask when I hear this is, did you elect yes or no to retirement plus, or did you just simply start working after July 1st of 2001? Two different things, because if you elected yes, so if you were somebody who was in our system before July 1st of 2001, and you elected yes to R plus in 2001, then if you don't reach 30 years of service, you get what's called an R plus refund, which is the difference between the rate of contribution that you were paying before 2001. So for example, if you started in 96 and you were paying 9 plus 2, and in 2001 you elected yes, and now you're paying 11, you would get an R plus refund of the difference between the 11% rate and the 9 plus 2 rate from the date that you started until the date you retire. So that's a nice little nest egg, one that you could be looking forward to getting in terms of an R plus refund. So who doesn't get an R plus refund? People who simply came into our system or our local system after July 1st of 2001. So if you started your career on September 1st of 2002 or 2007, and you are a mandatory R plus 11% member, then there will be no R plus refund for you because you didn't elect to switch to it. To answer your question about, if in that scenario, there will be no penalty. You will certainly just end with 25 years, but there will be no remedy either in that scenario. So it really depends on, did you elect or not? And I think that helps drive what the answer is on that question. But it's a great question. Okay. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you all have a terrific rest of your week off. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here with us today. I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to be talking with you guys about the application process. First, I'm going to go through the 3 basic steps that we recommend our members to take when they are starting the retirement process. I do want to stop real quick and just let you guys know, because I do see on the right-hand side, there are different points here that indicate different timelines for you. So if you look on the right-hand side, you're going to see 6 months, 5 months, or 4 months. If you are retiring at the end of June, but you haven't yet completed those first 2 steps that are listed on the screen, please don't panic. You still have time to send in your retirement paperwork. You have until the end of March to send us in your retirement application in order to be considered an on-time retirement filer. And what this means is that if you get us your applications 4 months in advance, we will ensure that you get your first check 4 months after you send it in to us, which would be on time at the end of July for your June 30th retirees. So getting into it, for those of you who are not retiring at the end of this year, these are the general steps that we recommend members to take when they're beginning the retirement process. We're going to go through our website and direct you to where you can find the online benefit estimator. We're going to review some general issues that we see throughout the application and how you can download the retirement application. Then we're going to get into going through the retirement application page by page together. And I'm going to give you some helpful tips as a retirement specialist of places that you should be focusing on when you're going through that process. And then lastly, I'll tell you what you should be doing once you receive the Part 2 back from your school district and how to submit it into the MTRS. So this is our website. First, you're going to go to mass.gov/MTRS. And if you click on the middle banner when you're in the home screen, the blue banner in the middle there is Browse by Topics by Career Stage. You're going to click on the selection of Approaching Retirement, and then select down below on the right-hand side, you'll see Estimate My Benefits. This is going to bring you to the Benefit Estimator page. This is not something that's mandatory for you to do, but if you're not sure what your benefit will be, it's a really helpful tool for members to use. So when you get to the estimator, it's going to ask you if you are a Tier 1 or Tier 2 member. It has 2 separate calculators for each tier. That's because there's different formulas that is used for Tier 1 member versus Tier 2 member, as Rich touched upon. So you would be a Tier 1 member if you started membership with us before 4/2/2012. If you were after 4/2/2012, you would be qualified as a Tier 2 member. So once you click that little calculator button there, it's going to bring up a terms and agreement page for you. Read through that and hit on agree and then next, and this will bring you to the actual benefit estimator. Essentially what you're going to do here is enter in your information to the best of your knowledge. You're going to plug in your own years of service, your date of birth, projected retirement dates, as well as salary information. And what this will do for you is it's going to generate on the right-hand side of the screen that estimated benefit projections for you. It'll show you what your benefits will be under options A, B, or C. One thing I do want to stress here is that this is not information that the MTRS is providing you. This is simply information generated by what you inputted on the prior screen. So after you input all that data and hit view summary, this estimate is going to be based off of what you put in. You have the ability to run this estimator as many times as you want, as many different scenarios as far as retirement dates or salary average, which is why we generally recommend members, if they're not sure about a retirement date, we navigate you guys to this page so that it's an easier way for you to get a better idea of what your benefit may be under options A, B, or C. After you've done that, or if you skip that step, that is fine. You're going to go back to the homepage, mass.gov/MTRS, and then click on that blue banner again in the middle of the screen to browse by topic. You're going to select Approaching Retirement for your stage in your career. And down below, you'll see that circled in red, it says Apply for Retirement. This is going to bring you to the page of which you have a lot of very helpful information. A lot of the information that lives on this page is what we are talking about today too. It will help you. There's a couple of videos such far as preparing for retirement, Also a step-by-step guide going through the retirement application on there as well, and then any general information that you might need to know about retirement. So if you click on the step 1, that's what it's going to be. So if you get any information today and you can't quite remember it, or if you want an expanded explanation or to be able to read it, this might be a good place for you to go look and see. After you go through that step, you'll see step 2. This is one of 2 places that you can find our retirement application. The other place is up on the top screen. You'll see there's home, members, retirees, employers, or forms. If you select forms and then active and inactive members, scroll all the way down to the bottom of that page, you will also find the link to the retirement application. So once you click on step 2 to download the retirement application, it's going to bring you to the actual PDF form of the retirement application. This is an interactive PDF file. For those of you who want to fill it out on the computer, what you would do is you would download this application and save it to your desktop. Once you do that, you have the ability to work on it, save it, come back to it, things like that. If you want to print it out and fill it out by hand, you can absolutely do so. We receive many applications done either way, so we don't care either way. One thing I do want to stress, and you will hear me say this a couple times as we're going through the application together, we do need all original signatures on your application. So if you are filling it out online, you will still need to print it out, sign it original signatures, and send us in the wet copy of the original signature. So we're going to walk through together the application page by page. Regardless of where you're at with the retirement process, some of you may have already started filling out the application, some of you may have already completed it. Some of you may have never even seen it before. So hopefully today, after we go through it page by page, you'll feel a little bit better about the process. It can be quite daunting. It is 9 pages, but there's a lot of helpful information that I will also guide you to where to look when you are filling out the application on your own within the margins. We have been having this application for many years, so we know where there are places that we need you to focus on and help you guys through the process. So we're here for you to go through that. And I'll also make a point to point out the common errors or reasons why we see incomplete applications. As a retirement specialist, where I'm very familiar with the application as far as what might be confusing to our members. So let's get right into it. Each page of the retirement application is going to be broken up into 2 pages or two screens rather. So the first slide is going to be the top of the page, second slide will be the bottom half of the page. For this first slide here, this is the first page of the retirement application. On the top of it, you are going to indicate what type of benefit you are applying for. As Rich mentioned, there is the regular retirement benefit, and there's also the retirement plus benefit. You'll also see a box there for involuntary termination. If this type of benefit applies to you, you would select that. And then down below in line D, you'll see the option to select if you are retiring for a disability retirement, yes or no there. Those are the 4 different types of benefits that you can apply for. Under line B, this is where you would indicate your intended date of retirement. As Rich had mentioned, for your June 30th, for your end of the year retirements, you are by law needed to use June 30th for your date of retirement. So if you stop working on the 22nd, that's normal for a school year to end there, but by law, it's mandated for those end of the school year retirees to use June 30th. Now, if you have a summer birthday, it may be financially beneficial for you to use your birthday in the summer as your date of retirement. The reason being, as you noticed when you went through the retirement calculation with Rich, that your age has a direct impact on the amount of benefit that's going to be paid out to you. So by using your birthday, if you're under, for you Tier 1 members, if you're under the age of 65, this will help us use the higher age factor within the calculation of your benefit. And again, as Rich indicated, if you're using your birthday, you want to actually use your specific birthday. For those of you who might not be retiring at the end of the school year, you can use any date that you want to retire. As the only time that is mandated for you to use June 30th would be the end of the year. So if you want to retire November 22nd, you can do so. If it is a out of nowhere type of date and we are questioning it, we will always contact you and say, why are you using this date? Because we want to make sure that you are receiving the best possible benefit that is due to you. Sometimes your last date of employment and your intended retirement date will not be the same date. An example of that would be if you are retiring in the summer, your last date of employment would be June 30th. However, your last date of employment would be June 30th. However, your date of retirement would be, let's say, July 10th. On the second half of this first page of the retirement application is just your basic demographic information. A couple lines I do want to point out here, which are important, is under line F is you're indicating your military status. If you are a veteran, you would want to check that off here so that it is flagged on our part so we can pay out the appropriate benefit to you. And then lastly, under line J, we are asking for your email address. It's important that you indicate your personal home email address and not your school address, because at the time after you retire, your school address will no longer be an active email, and we might need to contact you with questions about your retirement, or if after retirement questions about your payment, or just in general, reach out to you about retirement information. Now, as I mentioned, there is a lot of helpful information on the left-hand side in the margins of these applications. You're going to notice a couple of check boxes here. The first one is a marriage certificate. Any marriage certificate that you submit with your application can be a photocopy. We would need a marriage certificate representing any name change from your birth record. In addition to the marriage certificate, we do need a certified race seal birth certificate for those of you who are retiring. So any retiree needs to submit a certified race seal birth certificate. We're going to get to it in a little bit, but I do just want to mention another additional document that you would send in would be if you're choosing option C, we also need that option C beneficiary's certified race seal birth certificate as well. And lastly, the additional documentation that you might need to submit is if you are a veteran, you would need to submit a copy of your DD-214. Under section K, you are going to indicate your school district in which you are retiring from. If you're retiring from more than one district, you would want to indicate both districts here. Line L is for those of you who are dual members. If you don't know what a dual membership is, it's likely that this line doesn't apply to you and can be left blank. If you are a dual member, that means that you are part of more than one Massachusetts contributory retirement system. And you want to indicate that here if you are concurrently employed by more than one Massachusetts retirement system. Line M is for our special spousal benefit calculators. Those of you that this may apply to would be if you are under the age of 55 and you're married to somebody who has retired from any of the Massachusetts contributory retirement systems. And if you have both been members within a Massachusetts contributory retirement system as of November 1st, 2003. So if you meet these requirements and you're under the age of 55, we will provide you with a special spousal benefit calculation by increasing your age up to age 55 within the calculation. So for example, if you're age 53, we would use age 55 in the calculation of your benefit. Line N at the top of the page here is asking your marital status. This is one of two places that we ask you for your marital status. So please indicate that here. If you have ever been divorced, under lines Q and R is where you would indicate this. If you have been divorced and there's a qualified domestic relations order, we do need you to submit a copy of this domestic relations order along with your retirement application. Line S is where you would indicate if you have an alternate address. So if you are moving somewhere warm and sunny, or if you are just relocating altogether after retirement, please indicate that here, whether it's temporary or permanent, so we can ensure that all of your retirement information will be directly sent to you. And lastly, line T, if you have ever been convicted of a criminal offense involving your Massachusetts public employment, you do need to select yes or no on this question of the application. If it's left blank, it will be considered an incomplete application. So just one small question, but to make sure that you pay attention to it. As Rich mentioned, your salary plays a role in the calculation of your benefit. So your salary is going to be your 3 highest consecutive salary average, which will be used in the calculation of your benefit. In this section, we're not asking for you to write down your specific salaries that you're going to use in the calculation of your benefit. What we're asking you here is the contract years that you were paid your highest consecutive salaries. This can be as specific or generic. So right here, it's very specific as to the start date to and from. But if you put the 2023, 2024 contract year, that's sufficient as well. We're just looking to make sure that what we're using for you in the calculation of your benefit for your 3 highest years is in fact what you believe to be your 3 highest years. And on the right-hand side, you would indicate if you are covered under a collective bargaining agreement or an individual contract. And again, on the margin, we have our check boxes. This is as a reminder for you to submit your salary schedules with your retirement application. Generally, your school district is going to supply you with these salary schedules when they give you back your Part 2. However, if they don't, it's important that you ensure that when you send it into the MTRS, you're including these salary schedules. So this would be the salary grid in the back of your collective bargaining agreement and or any pertinent language within the contract in regards to longevity or stipend payments. Or if you're in an individual contract, we would need your individual contract for your last 5 years. This is your first signature page down at the bottom here. You can see Mary Educator signed off on it. I just want to again state that when you're sending in your application to us, we do need the original wet signature for this legal document. Section 4 is getting into your creditable service history. Rich went over with you guys all the different types of buybacks. At the top here is your regular retirement Massachusetts teaching service. So all of you should be checking yes in this box. And then the subsequent boxes are just the different purchases that Rich went over with you. The last 2 are your leave of absence or your military service. I do just want to stress that this page is really just a checks and balance page to make sure that everything that you think you have credited with Mass Teachers is in fact credited with you when we go to process your benefit. As an expansion to that top list is where you would list all of your service. Again, this is a checks and balances page. We want to make sure that if you're saying that your Vermont service that you bought back is credited, is in fact credited with you. So on the left-hand side, you will see that you would spell out your different service that you rendered. The from and to dates, again, can be as specific or vague as you are able to fill it out. It's to be filled out by the best of your ability. And the right-hand side is where you indicate if it's credited, if you plan to purchase it, or if you do not plan to purchase it. Down at the bottom is where you're going to indicate your total years of service that you think you have at the time of retirement. If for whatever reason this number is very skewed off from what we have for you within our system, the retirement counselor will contact you and let you know and kind of have a conversation with you and say, for example, I have you at 36 years, but you're writing 34.3 years, or you're writing 34.3 years, but I only have 31 years. Where may be off? And sometimes you might just say, oh, you're right, I forgot that year I was off, or something like that. So we try our best to make sure that if there is any big differences, we're communicating that to you. So that way you're not getting any surprise once you get your notice from us about the calculation of your benefit. Continuing to page 5, this page is oftentimes left blank. On this page, you're going to document any leaves of absence, workers' compensation payments, or military service. So if you've never had any leave of absence, workers' comp payments, or military service, it is okay for this page to be blank. If you have had a leave of absence or military service, we ask you to document it here to the best of your ability. This is another checks and balances type of page, indicating that, okay, you think you had workers' comp payments here, but the school district isn't telling us about it. And we would follow up with the school district on that information if we're also not seeing it in your account. So it's just a way for us, again, to ensure that everything that you think you have for credit is in fact what we have for you, and that everything is being properly calculated for your benefit. Page 6 is your direct deposit authorization form. By law, you have to have your retirement payments directly deposited into an account. This can either be a checking account or a savings account. If you're having it deposited into a checking account, we do need an avoided check attached to your application at the time of filing. If you're having it deposited into a savings account, or if you do not have a voided check, you would submit us an official account verification document along with your application, verifying and letting us know how to deposit your direct deposit payment. Under this is a question that is very, very often overlooked. So it's a very small question, but it does need to be completed in order for your application to be considered complete. So I just want to draw your attention to it. It's a very simple question, but oftentimes gets overlooked. The question is if you're having your payments deposited to a US bank and then forwarded to a bank in another country. Oftentimes the answer to this question is no, but we do just need it officially documented for your legal document. If you're having your retirement deposited into a joint account, be sure to have your joint account holder sign and date this portion in Section 5B of the application. And lastly, in Section 5C, this is the member's signature. Basically, you're signing off that you give us authority to directly deposit your retirement benefit into the account information listed above. And again, original signatures are required. Page 7 and 8 are, I would say, one of the most common errors that we see for members when they're sending in their retirement paperwork. It can be a little bit tricky. We see this application every day, day in, day out. So to us, it's second nature, but to you guys, I know it can be a little bit daunting. So I'm going to walk you through this page as clearly as I can, so that hopefully when you're filling it out, it doesn't seem overwhelming. Page 7 is going to be your option selection form. On this page 7, you're going to see the boxes to be able to select either option A, B, or C. Based off of what Rich said, you know the differences between options A, B, and C. Here is where you would indicate that throughout the retirement process. So by selecting either option A, B, or C for your retirement beneficiary, you would need to just simply check the box and then sign the bottom of the page. However, if you're choosing option C, you would need to indicate your beneficiary's information in the boxes provided right next to option C. You're going to indicate their name, their date of birth, social security number, and their relationship to you. The only ones that you can select as your option C beneficiary would be your sibling, parent, child, spouse, or former spouse, as Rich had mentioned. Along with your option C retirement application, you would need to submit us your certified birth certificate of your option C beneficiary, as well as a photocopy of any marriage certificate to represent the relationship to you and your option C beneficiary. One important thing to note before I go to the next page is that Mary is choosing her husband, Joseph, as her option C beneficiary. Mary has signed and dated this page on 3/1/2024. By Mary signing and dating this page, she is saying that I am choosing option C as my benefit option, and I'm electing my husband as my option C beneficiary. So that is Mary making that statement. On page 8, this is the second part that you will see that I mentioned that we will ask you your marital status. There's 3 different boxes there. You would check if you are married, if you've been divorced, if there's a domestic relations order, or if you're not currently married. By signing off on the first section 7 of the page 8, you are indicating approval that to the best of your knowledge, this is your marital status at the time of retirement. After completing that, down below at the bottom of page 8 is going to be your spousal acknowledgement. The purpose of the spousal acknowledgement is for the spouse to look at your page 7 as the member and say, I am acknowledging that they are choosing either options A, B, or C. I am signing off on that and on this date. Down below it, you'll see another space for a signature. This is for a witness to witness the spouse seeing page 7 and signing off on their acknowledgement of the page 7. So essentially, what happened here is Joe teacher or Joe educator, along with the witness, Wilma witness, were both together on this day on March 1st, 2024. And Wilma is witnessing Joe look at his wife Mary's page 7, indicating that she is choosing him as his option C beneficiary. And they're all signing it off on the same date. In a perfect world, they're all on the same date, but If Joe and Wilma were not with Mary on 3/1, then as long as their signature dates are on or after the date that she signed page 7, that would be considered a complete application. If you're choosing option A as your retirement benefit, then you would need to indicate your beneficiaries on page 9. This is where you would indicate their address, their name, indicate their social security number. When you are putting the percent of payment, please ensure that the percent of payment equals 100%. Similarly, with your option B, you would want to indicate their full contact information as well as their social security number, and ensure that the percentages that you are putting under the right-hand side equal 100%. In the event that you wish to choose a contingent beneficiary designation, you can indicate them on the bottom of this page. If you have more than one contingent that you would like to name, you just print out additional pages of this page 9 and send them in along with your application. A contingent beneficiary is if upon your passing, you're either option A or B beneficiaries have predeceased you, then the benefit payment will go to your contingent beneficiary. This is the IRS form that would indicate your federal tax withholding. The IRS has recently mandated that we use their specific form. We used to have a simplified form. However, now we have to use this form. So we are not tax professionals over here at the MTRS. We are your retirement specialists. So I'm going to do my best to indicate to you what we're looking for on this form as far as what makes it complete. But if you have specific questions about what to claim or what to deduct, then you would want to speak to your tax professional about those questions. Under step 1 is going to be your basic demographic information. Under A and B, just your name, your social, your address. Line C, although it is very small, it's probably one of the most important parts of this, this form. So this is where the tax table, the federal tax table is. You would indicate here if you want your taxes withheld at single, married, or head of household rate. Now, if you fill out only step 1, and number letters A, B, and C, and then sign and date the bottom, that would be considered a complete application. However, if you want to have some additional, if you want to indicate some additional earnings, you would indicate that under step 2. If you have any additional claims that you want to make as far as a dependent or other credits, that would be listed under step 3. And lastly, if you want any other additional deductions or extra withholding to be taken for your federal taxes, you would indicate that under step 4. And again, original signature and date. This is the first part of page 2 or part 2 of your retirement application. Hopefully this is the easiest part of the application that you will see. All you're going to indicate here is just your name, your social, your member number, your intended date of retirement, and the name of the school district. One thing I want to point out here is if you are retiring from more than one school district, you will need to complete 2 part 2s. So whether you're 50% in Sturbridge and 50% in Worcester, or if you are your last year was in Sturbridge, but before then your 5+5 prior years were in Worcester, we would need 2 part 2s filled out by each of those school districts, and then they will send that back to you. Once a school district has sent that part 2 back to you, it's your duty to review it and make sure that all the information that they're providing on the application is completed to your knowledge to be accurate. Once you have reviewed the part 2 that they completed, you're going to put this together with the part 1 that you completed, as well as the additional required documents. Again, this is going to be any photocopies of your marriage certificates that are applicable. It's going to be your original raised seal birth certificates for the member, as well as the option C beneficiary, if applicable. If you are a veteran, we need your DD-214 submitted with it. A voided check if you're having your payments deposited to a checking account or the bank statement. And lastly, your salary schedules that generally will be submitted by your school district with part 2, but if not, we do need your contract information. Once you have all of that, make a copy of everything for your records just to keep with you. And then once you've made that copy, you're going to submit both parts 1, 2, and all the documents into the MTRS. Please be sure that you're mailing us in your original document and not the photocopy that you have made for your records. Once we get the application in-house, we're going to review it for completeness, and we'll notify you and let you know if it is complete and you are all set, or if there's some additional information that is needed or something that may have been missed. And we'll send you that out in a letter that will be mailed out to you. When we do send out that letter, we will also mail back your original birth certificates. We process retirement applications on a first come, first served basis. I'm sure, as you are all aware, June 30th is one of the most popular times for members to retire. So our general processing time from when we get your application in-house is going to be 4 months from when we get it in-house to when we get you your first check. If for whatever reason there might be an additional delay to this general processing time, we will contact you. So if we need to reach out to your school district to get some additional payroll information, or if something's not lining up, we're going to notify you of this and make sure that you're aware of the delay and keep you aware of the process as we're going through confirming all of your retirement information. Once your calculation has been completed, we will mail out your notice of estimated retirement benefits. This is going to be a letter that breaks out the benefit calculation for you. It's going to have your age, your years of service, your salary average, your percent that you're retiring at, as well as your annual and your monthly benefit gross payments that will be sent to you. Generally, as I stated, you're going to receive your first check at the end 4 months after you get your retirement paperwork into us. You're going to get paid at the end of every month for that month that you've been retired. If you have sent us in your retirement paperwork, let's say in May, our general processing time is 4 months. However, you're not going to lose out on any money. What will happen is, yes, your benefit will be calculated and you'll likely get your notice of estimated retirement benefits sent out to you in September. However, you're going to get a retroactive payment all the way through up to your date of retirement. So if you file late, or if for whatever reason there's a delay on our end, you're not going to lose out on any money. We will always pay you a retroactive adjustment to your date of retirement. As I indicated, your retirement benefit does need to be a direct deposit. Your first payment might be mailed to you depending on the time that it is processed. So your first payment may be a paper check depending on when it is processed by the retirement counselor. However, after that first paper check, your subsequent payments will be that direct deposit. So this is the quiz. I hope you all know now that direct deposit is mandatory for you to have for your retirement allowance. Once you get your direct deposit set up, once we input it into the system, you're going to get paid at the end of each month for that month that you've been retired. You're not going to receive a monthly statement unless there's a change in the retirement amount that you are receiving via paper. So you won't receive a paper monthly statement that will be mailed to you unless there's a change in the retirement amount that you're going to be getting. The MTRS will be sending out some type of notice or announcement to our retirees, or at the end of every December, you will receive a year-end summary statement that will be mailed out to you. If you do need access to a monthly statement, this can be accessed on your member self-service account, your online account. As Rich had mentioned, you would just log onto the account and you would be able to find the monthly statements there. And I believe we're going to pause now for some questions.
Thanks, Jen. Actually, I think considering the time, and we've gone, quite a bit over, and we still have a very, very healthy amount of people in the room. Let's just finish the slides, and then we'll take all the questions at the end.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you. So the reality of it is, I'm sure all of you would like to retire and move to a beach in Florida somewhere or Hawaii and just enjoy retirement. But unfortunately, the world that we live in now, there is likely going to be a majority of you that are working after retirement. For those of you who are looking for employment in either the private sector or in another state, either private or public, or working for the federal government, there's going to be no limitations to your ability on what you can earn or how long that you can work within those employers. Where you will see limitations will be any employment within a Massachusetts public sector. There's going to be a limitation on the time that you can work and the earnings that you can earn. Firstly, if you're returning to work with the same employer, you do need to be separated from service for 60 days before being eligible to return back to work with that same employer. For those of you who are retiring at the end of the school year in June, those 60 days is covered by the time if you want to go back in September to work after retirement for that same employer, you have met that 60-day requirement and you would be eligible to return back to work with that same employer after 60 days in September. This restriction is going to be waived if you're retiring at age 62 or above, or if you're retiring at the 80% maximum benefit. Getting into the limitations. For the time that you can work, the amount of hours that you can work within a calendar year is going to be capped at 1,200 hours for your service that you can render in a Massachusetts public sector. Your earnings limitation is going to be calculated based off of what you would have earned had you had not retired. We subtract out your retirement pension, and then this amount that is remaining is going to be the amount that you are able to earn as a retiree returning back to work in the public sector. After one full year, you get an additional $15,000 increase to that. Let's break down this calculation for you though. So here is Mary Educator. She's going to retire on June 30th, 2024 from a position that paid her $77,000. So since Mary retired in the 23-24 school year, she needs to go back to her employer and ask what she would be earning had she had not retired and continued to work into the 24-25 school year. One thing to note that this salary that the school district should provide you should not only be your base pay, it should also be any longevity, coaching, or stipend payments that you were receiving in that year that you retired. Mary would then subtract out her MTRS gross annual pension amount from that salary. So for Mary's salary from for her former position, had she had not retired, would have been $79,000. Her gross monthly pension amount is $50,175. This would leave Mary with an allowable earnings for the rest of the calendar year of 2024 of $28,825. Since Mary retired on June 30th of 2024, she has to wait one full calendar year to be able to get that $15,000 increase. So for Mary, her one full calendar year is January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. So starting January 1st, 2026, Mary has the opportunity to be able to earn an additional $15,000 per calendar year to that $28,825 amount that would be calculated. One thing to note is that this is not a cumulative $15,000. It is a one-time $15,000 per year. If a school district is having difficulties finding if the school district is having difficulties finding someone to fill a position, they can apply to the Department of Early Elementary and Secondary Education for a critical shortage waiver. By doing this, the MTRS does not get involved in any way, shape, or form with this process. If they have applied for the critical shortage waiver, in order for a retiree to be eligible to then work under that critical shortage position, you must either have retired under the regular retirement formula, or if you are under the retirement plus formula retiree, you have to wait 2 years in order to be eligible to work under a critical shortage waiver. Generally, these positions are anywhere from 6 months to a year of time that is approved by DESE for the critical shortage waiver. But if your school district has obtained that waiver, or if a school district has obtained that waiver and is asking you to work in that position, and you are either a regular retirement calculation or have waited those 2 years, then you do have the ability to return to work or go to work under that critical shortage waiver and earn that full amount of that position, as well as still receiving your full MTRS benefit. One thing to note is that if you are returning back to the public employment area under either a consultant or a contracted position, if you're returning to the Massachusetts public schools, or if you're going to another public agency within Massachusetts, if you are a consultant or a contractor, you would still be subject to the service and earnings restrictions that I mentioned earlier, either to the 12,000 hours or 1,200 hours or the earning calculation that we went through. If you are nearing these limitations, if you're getting close to the 1,200 hours, or if you're getting close to the earnings limitations, you have the ability to freeze or waive your retirement benefit. Basically, you're going to put it on hold so that you can finish that employment opportunity and receive that amount that would go over either the hours or the earnings limitation. And then once you've completed that position, you would contact us via writing, letting us know okay, I've completed this position, please unfreeze my benefit. And then we would begin paying your benefit out. One thing to note, though, is that you will not receive, once it is unfrozen, you won't receive a retroactive payment of your benefit back to when you had frozen it. It's basically you're hitting pause and then you're starting over. So that would be if you're getting close to the limitations, but you don't want to leave that employment position. If you do go over the allowable limits, as far as the hours or the earnings, and it isn't either or. So if you're getting close to the earnings, but you're not quite there on the hours, you would need to stop working, and vice versa. So if you go over those limits, then the MTRS will need to recover the earnings that you earned in excess of the limitations. The good news, taxation of your benefit, the good news is that your pension isn't going to be subject to any state taxes. The bad news is that the federal government never lets you get away, so you will still be subject to federal taxes. Many of you may have after-tax funds in your account with the MTRS. This would be any contributions that you paid to the MTRS prior to 1988, or any service purchases that you bought back with after-tax funds. These after-tax funds are kept in a separate area of your account. As a retiree, you're going to receive a 1099-R. A 1099-R is essentially the retiree version of your W-2. Within this 1099-R, there's going to be a separate box that would indicate to you your after-tax funds. These after-tax monies will be recovered in about 20 to 30 years. Every other year with your 1099-R, you will receive a benefit verification form that will be mailed out to you. This is essentially a live and well check to make sure that you are still the person who is receiving your benefit and that there is no pension fraud taking place. And lastly, if you are planning to move out of state, you would definitely want to check with that state to ensure if there would be any additional taxes to your Massachusetts state pension. Before I get into the Social Security information, I do just want to indicate to you guys, or explain to you, that we are not Social Security. We are here to help you as Mass state pension holders to understand your Social Security benefit, but we urge you to contact them with any specific questions regarding your Social Security. For your Social Security benefit, there are two provisions that may impact the amount of benefit that you would receive from Social Security. The first one is the windfall elimination provision. You would be exempt from this provision if you are eligible to retire prior to 1/1/86, or if you have at least 30 years of substantial earnings. If you are not exempt, then your Social Security benefit may be reduced by about 55%. The second provision is the government pension offsite. This affects your ability to collect your spouse's Social Security benefit. You would be exempt from this provision if you are eligible to retire prior to 12/1/82, or if you have 30 years of substantial earnings. Please note that this does not affect your spouse's Social Security benefit, but the likelihood that you will get any benefit of theirs is small. Please note that these provisions will not affect your Medicare coverage, and we want to encourage members to reach out to Social Security prior to your 65th birthday to avoid any penalties, to talk to them about your Medicare or when you need to apply for your Part B. One way I will direct you to is the Social Security website. It's ssa.gov. There's a lot of helpful information on here that you may be able to find on your own versus having to call them. And lastly, I just want to say that your MTRS benefit is what it is, regardless of what happens with Social Security. Your benefit is going to be paid out to you the exact same way based off of that set formula, regardless of what happens with Social Security. Okay, so let's end on a high note. It's not that high, but it's still better than Social Security. So after 1 full year, you may be eligible to get a cost of living adjustment. This does need to get approved every year by legislature, but generally it does get approved. This cost of living adjustment will either be 3% or the consumer price index, whichever is less, on the first $13,000 of your retirement. It's at a maximum benefit increase of $390 a year, $780 the next year, and so on. So it is cumulative. It doesn't keep up with inflation, but it's still something. And I think now we're going to take some questions.
Great, thank you very much, Jen. We'll start with this first question. Can we deliver the application and documents in person at either the Springfield or Charlestown office to save on mailing time?
Yes, absolutely. So our offices are both open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:45 for your ability to drop off your application. If you want to save on the mailing time, or if you don't feel comfortable sending in your original documents, you can absolutely walk it into us. A retirement counselor will sit with you, check it over for completeness, give you back photocopies of your original application, and then let you know the general processing time. Or from that point, we would then put it into queue for the admin staff to review it for completeness again.
Great, thank you. Next question, does paid maternity count towards years of service?
So any paid leave of absence isn't going to have any impact on your creditable service. Basically, if you're on a paid leave of absence, we see no difference as far as your MTRS account goes, because you are still paying your full retirement contributions on your full salary. If it was an unpaid leave of absence for longer than a month, that is when it would have an impact on your service credit. So any unpaid leave of absence longer than 1 month of time, you can receive up to 1 month of service credit for that leave. If you're receiving a prorated or a partially paid leave of absence, then, so if your maternity leave was a prorated or partial paid leave of absence, you would receive prorated service credit for that leave of absence time.
Great, thank you. Next question, what happens if my CBA hasn't been negotiated or ratified from my last year of service? How would a retroactive pay raise be included in my retirement benefit?
Absolutely. That's a great question, and we see that quite often. So if your school district hasn't yet settled the contract, that's okay. Don't let this deter you from sending in your retirement paperwork to us. What happens is once the school district settles that contract, they will notify us or send us over the contract information regarding their retirees. And once we receive this information, if your benefit has already been calculated, it will go to our adjustments department to make the appropriate adjustments so that your raise is included in your salary average. So your school district, once they pay you the retroactive adjustment after the contract has been settled, they will deduct retirement contributions from that retroactive payment. And then once they do so, they'll contact us and they'll let us know the members it affects, the date of the retro that was paid, the new salary average. They'll send us over the new contract, and everything will kind of be all rounded out at that point once the contract is settled. So it's not going to affect, again, your benefit payment. If the contract hasn't been settled, it's not going to mean that you're going to get a lower salary average. It will all be a retroactive payment that will be made to you.
Great, thank you. Two more questions. If I submit my retirement application, can I delay retirement if I decide to keep working?
Yes, absolutely. You have up until your date of retirement to withdraw your retirement application. So if you submit your application, let's say in April, and you no longer want to retire at the end of June, you can absolutely do so. You would just send in a letter to the MTRS letting us know that you want to withdraw your retirement application.
Great. And the final question that we'll answer from the chat here publicly is, if my school administration checked off the regular retirement box and I'm actually in Retirement Plus, will my application be returned, or will you be able to make that adjustment?
So the information that the school district puts as far as the type of benefit that you will receive, and also the information that you put in that part, page 1, section A, is helpful information to make sure that we are all, again, on the same page. But as far as the type of benefit that's going to be paid out to you, that is going to be determined by what we have for you in our system. Majority of the time, it's going to be the same across the board. But if the school district gets it wrong, if they don't know that you're in Retirement Plus for some reason, then we would just make that adjustment on our end, because we do know we're your retirement system. We know what contribution rate you're paying in. We know what benefit you're entitled to. So we have that information within your account on our system, and we would make that appropriate adjustments.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you to Jen and to Rich, both fantastic presentations, very helpful. As indicated by some of the comments in the chat, people are appreciative of it. Thank you to our audience. A great deal of you stuck around past the 11 o'clock end time. And we will be here answering questions in the live chat for a bit. So thank you very much for your attendance and participation, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.